Hello students, welcome back to my channel. Let us continue learning the chapter 13, database concepts. In the previous session, we have completed relational algebra. In today's session, we'll be talking about data warehouse. Now, the data warehouse and the data mining are the two last topics which is remaining of this chapter. After that, we will be starting with the new chapter, which is SQL, right? So let us begin with data warehouse. So this is a more theoretical topic. Let us briefly try to understand what exactly a data warehouse is. Okay, so like the definition says here, a data warehouse is a repository of an organization electronically stored data. So repository is, as you all know, it is something where we can store something, isn't it? So what are we storing in this repository? We are storing organizations electrically stored data. So till now we were learning about the database. So we knew that all the data of any organization, of any institution are stored in a database. Now what is this we are talking about? Data warehouse, so which is also giving us the same definition as database, isn't it? Remember, database comparatively smaller than data warehouse. Data warehouse is a collection of database. Okay, so different kinds of databases which companies use. Usually databases are used only to store and to get certain information, but data warehouse, the purpose of the data warehouse is different, that we will be learning in the next slides. So try to understand that database is always a collection of databases is called as data warehouse. Data warehouse is a bigger picture when it comes to the database. That is the reason we have kind of a similar understanding that warehouse is also a repository of organization electrically stored data. So whatever the data gets generated from an organization, everything will be stored in a data warehouse, right? So as you can see here, this diagram, so we have all the data, which is everything from wherever, whether it is a cloud, whether it is a file, or whether it is a database, everything we are going to store in data warehouse, okay? Any kind of a data, heterogeneous data, which is multiple types of data will be stored in a data warehouse, which belongs to that particular company, right? So see here, a data warehouse are designed to facilitate reporting and supporting data analysis. This is important, okay? Unlike database, what do we do in database? We store information and we retrieve information. Basically, we do different transactions, isn't it? Whether it is accessing, updating, deleting, inserting, such transactions we perform in a database. But data warehouse, the main purpose is data analysis. All the data which is getting generated by the data of the organization will be stored in a particular place. So historical data gets analyzed in the data warehouse. The concept of data warehouse was introduced in late 1980s, remember. Okay, so very recent it was. The concept was introduced to meet the growing demands for management, right? So what is the meaning of that? So historical data of an organization are collected, they are viewed, they are analyzed, and then they are used for management purpose. Okay. Management information and analysis that could not be met by the operational system. So regular database, when we cannot analyze the data in that. But when we are storing all the historical data, all the backups, what we have taken of the data, everything, when we collate together and we analyze the data, we are getting certain information. With that, we can do certain decisions, right? Okay, so all the kinds of data, like I told you, data marts. Now, data marts are nothing but a smaller databases. Okay, metadata, that is data about the data. ETL we will learn now. OLAP, okay, online analytical processing, online transaction processing, any kind of a data, everything will be available in your data warehouse. That is the importance of your data warehouse. Okay. So data warehouse have evolved. So let us see how it has evolved, evolution of a data warehouse. So first stage was offline operational database. Okay, what is this offline operational database? Data warehouse in this initial stage are developed by simply copying the database of an operational system into an online server, where the processing load of reporting does not impact on the operational performance system. So initially, when the data warehouse concept came, all people were doing is from the database directly copying into the data warehouse. Okay, Operational, when we say it is the day-to-day operations what we perform on a database, those contents were simply copied and nothing much were done about it. Okay. Next came the offline data warehouse. So here what happened, database warehouses in the stage of evaluations are updated to regular time cycle. Okay. So instead of keeping a data for a month and every time I'm taking a backup, that time people used to copy. Now it became a during the regular time cycle. So what do you mean by during regular time cycle? Here it is daily, weekly, monthly on such a particular basis. For example, if I say weekly, every week on a particular day, I'm going to take a backup and I'm going to send my data to the warehouse. So which means people realize the importance of historical data. Okay, from operational systems. Operational system is nothing but everyday operations, what we do in a day-to-day life, the database, what we are accessing from that system, we are taking a backup. And the data is stored in an integrated reporting-oriented data structure. Okay, integrated report-oriented data structure is a particular data structure which warehouses use. Okay, unlike our regular database. So hence, from here to the next stage, there is a huge difference. So there is a lot of weekly and that is regular time cycle. The backups started happening during this period of the time, right? Next we have is the real-time data warehouse. Now we started doing during a regular cycle time. Now real time, which means as and when it is getting updated. Okay, data warehouses are updated on transaction or event basis. That means if at all I'm performing certain transaction, if I'm updating certain data, that gets updated immediately. If at all I'm deleting certain record, that also gets updated immediately in the data warehouse. You don't have to wait for a week or a month. So real-time data warehouse is nothing but on the every regular intervals of time it is getting updated. Then comes integrated data warehouses. Data warehouses used to generate activity or transaction that are passed back into the operational system for use in the daily activity of the organization. Warehouses become integrated into the operational activity. So unlike there is no update, there is no need of updating at all. The data warehouse itself is a part of the operational system. So we have from backing up once in a month, once in 6 months, we have reached into integrated data warehouse. This is the evolution of the data warehouse in our real world scenario. Okay. Now let us go ahead and see what are the different components of the data warehouses. The very first one is data sources. So if at all I want to use a data warehouse, I need a data. Now what are these data sources? From where am I getting this data? Data sources refers to any electronic repository of information that contains data of interest for management use of analytics. Okay, it can be any kind of a data. If there is an organization and it is generating the data, if at all I'm going to use that data for a future analysis purpose, then that is my data of interest, right? Data needs to be passed from these systems to the data warehouse, either on the transaction by transaction basis or real time. Okay, this we spoke how. Now, once we analyze what is the data which I'm going to store in the data warehouse, how am I going to store, whether it is a real time or it is a regular time interval. So that is what I'm going to decide on how am I going to collect this data, right? So as you can see here, operational database. This operational database is nothing but the database which we have studied, okay, which is regularly used in the organization. Flat files, normal flat files, different users. Okay, so data warehouse, what we are going to do, we are going to collect all these data which is generated by the organization, and then we are going to report it, analyze it. We are going to mine the information from those data collected in the data warehouse. Okay, so the very first component is data sources. Now let us see the next component. Next component is data transformation. That is, once the sources are collected, once the data is collected, I have to transform the data. Okay, I have to convert it into a particular form in order to analyze it. Right, because we spoke before, the data, whatever we are collecting is heterogeneous. What is the meaning of that? Okay, the data, some data might be flat files, some data may be video, some data may be audio, some data may be Word file, different formats, because we are going to collect whatever data we are getting. So the data transformation is very important. We have to transform the data in order to analyze the data, right? The data transformation layer receives data from the data sources, cleaned and standardized. That is what I was taking. So cleaned is standardized is nothing, but we are going to convert it into a certain format which can be used in order to analyze, and then loads it into the data repository. Okay, this is often called staging the data, as data often passes through the temporary database while it is being transformed. So we are going to transform it into a required format. Of course, here we are going to use the different tools and everything, which we will not be learning in depth, but you should know the data transformation phases where I'm going to convert the different heterogeneous data into the required format, right? Next, the activity of transformation of data can be performed either by manually created code or specific software could be used. So this transformation can be done by the code generated by that particular data warehouse company itself, or there are different tools available. The very important tool usually we will come across is ETL tool, extract transformation and loading tool. This is used in order to data transformation, right? So once we have received the data from the different sources, we are going to do the data transformation, and then we will do the reporting. Next part is reporting. What is this reporting? The data in the data warehouse must be available to the organization staff if the data warehouse is to be useful, isn't it? Whatever the data we have collected, that must be available to that particular organization itself. If it is storing it in a warehouse and if it is dumping it and keeping it there, it is of no point. It should be available. There are very large number of applications that can perform this function, or reporting can be custom developed. Some business intelligence tools, executive information system, online analytical processing. So this is what we were talking about, tools, data mining, etc. Okay. So we would have heard about data mining very often. So what exactly we are talking about is reporting is nothing but data I have collected, I have transformed the data. Now I am supposed to do something with this transformed data, isn't it? For example, if I'm using a data mining, which means I am trying to generate certain type of a visualization I will do. With that, I will find out that, okay, this is the kind of a profit I have got. This is the kind of a working environment I have created. So how am I going to take the next step of decisions, right? So data mining, certain kind of a pattern I'm going to generate with the collected data. So that is nothing but your reporting phase, where we will analyze the data and we will try to generate certain visualization or a pattern. Okay, next comes metadata. Metadata, or the data about the data. Remember, metadata always means data about the data, is used to inform the operator and use of the data warehouses about its data. It is nothing but metadata is nothing but, for example, you can think of it as a catalog. Okay, it will give us the details, everything. So about its status, information held within the data warehouse, what are the different kinds of data which is available in the data warehouse, is nothing but your metadata. Next comes is operations. In operations, what happens is data warehouses operations comprises of the processing of loading, manipulating and extracting data from the data warehouse. Okay, so different operations we can perform on the data which is being stored, transformed, and we have all this metadata, catalogs and everything. With that, whatever the required information is there, we can perform certain operations and we can take it. Operations also cover user management, security, capacity management, and related functions. So various kinds of operations, of course, is available in the data warehouse. Otherwise, it is of no use, isn't it? That's the reason different operations are also given in the data warehouse, which a user can apply and get the required information from the data warehouse. So these are the different components of the data warehouse. So if we had to summarize, so before summarizing, there are other optional components also, which is dependent data mart, logical data mart, and operational data store. Now, these are the optional components of the data warehouse, not necessary that this has to be there. Dependent data mart is like a small database. Okay, data mart, you can consider it as a smaller database. So there can be another dependent database, there can be a logical database, and there can be operational data stored. So we can also have these kind of databases in order to store the details of the data warehouse, right? So what is the advantages of having a data warehouse? Now, data warehouse advantages is it enhances end user access to reports and analyze the information. We can analyze the information. End user will be able to analyze it because, of course, they will not be knowing how to process their historic data. So if at all a data warehouse analyzes, decodes, and gives it in a visualized format, end user will be able to use it in a very effective way. Increased data consistency. Okay, since we are going to clean the data and everything, the consistency of the data increases. Increased productivity and decrease computing costs. Again and again, there is no need of doing the computing. The historic data itself we are using, so it increases productivity. Able to combine data from different sources in one place. Okay. Otherwise, we have a problem, isn't it? When it is of a different heterogeneous data, if it is of different kinds of data, usually in an organization, it is difficult for them to do. But if at all we are taking the help of a data warehouse, we are able to combine the data from the different sources in one place, and we are able to analyze the same. Okay. Data warehouses provide an infrastructure that could support changes to the data and replication of the change data back into the operational system. So it is giving us another, like we have a tool, data warehouse, we can say that it is going to analyze my data. It is going to take all the data, analyze it and everything, and then I can take it back into my organization, isn't it? So operational change back into the operational database is nothing but I'm going to take it back into my regular database. So based on that, I can perform my next set of operations. So these are the main advantages. Disadvantages: extracting, cleaning, and loading data could be time consuming. From the data warehouse point of view, these are the different things which is time consuming. Data warehouses can get outdated relatively quickly. Okay, if they're using same set of old tools, they're using the same set of methods, then they can get outdated quickly. So data warehouses need to go on updating themselves because the organization can generate different kinds of data. If they are updating themselves, then of course the data warehouse also need to update themselves. Problems with compatibility with system already in place. Okay, once again, since we are collecting data from different resources, compatibility problem can happen because we are already having systems in place. We have to go on updating them. Providing training to the end user. Okay, suppose I'm generating certain kind of a visualization. If I'm giving a visualization of a barcode, the user must be able to analyze that. If at all I'm going to give them a pie chart, then are they able to analyze it? So even the training for the end user is required. Security could develop into a serious issue, especially if the data warehouse is internet accessible. Okay, so now what is happening? We said that any data of the organization which we feel that we can use is going to be stored in the data warehouse. Now, since data is a very crucial component, and if this particular data warehouse is accessible by anyone, then there is a possibility of security threat. Anybody can hack the data and access the details of that particular company, isn't it? That's the reason security could develop a serious issue here. Data warehouse is usually not static and maintenance costs are very high. Of course, it cannot be static. It need to be dynamic. It need to be go on changing. That is why the maintenance cost will be high. Okay. So these are the main disadvantages when it comes to your data warehouse. So that's all in today's session, students. So with the data, we have completed with the data warehouse. Now we have only one topic left in this particular chapter, that is your data mining, which we will be doing it shortly. With that, we will complete this chapter. So thank you for watching. Hope these videos are helping you. Kindly share it with your friends. Keep learning.